We're living longer lives. Our life expectancy has been going up. That's great news. Also, we're having fewer babies per capita. Now, if you take these two trends together, one thing's clear. In the future, we'll have a much older population in almost all countries of the world. The challenge with that is who's going to give care to these older people? And that will include me in a couple of decades. Now, some say, yeah, technology, of course, that's the solution. Others go, would you really want to be taken care of by a robot? I talked about this with Dr. Walter Greenleaf. He's a researcher at Stanford University and does a lot of work around AR and VR. His point is, if you give more tech solutions to patients, it means more personalized medicine because you can monitor 24/7. You can give feedback in the moment, and you give them better learning and immersion opportunities to change behaviors through AR and VR. Check out the whole video interview with Walter Greenleaf. I'm sitting with Dr. Walter Greenleaf. You're a research scientist at Stanford University, and your focus neuro and biobehavioral science, VR, AR, and medicine. Walter, thanks for taking the time.
Wonderful to be here with you. Exciting topic.
Now, and not just for the last couple of years, when most people would have said, oh, that's interesting, let's jump on the bandwagon. You have been in it for more than 3 decades. How did that all start?
Well, it started back when I was a graduate student at Stanford, working in a psychophysiology lab, studying how hormones affect our mood and behavior. And a very good friend of mine, Jaron Lanier, started the first commercial virtual reality company. I had been doing a lot of work taking digital data and scoring it for healthcare purposes, and I got very interested in what he was doing, and we teamed up on some projects.
So how did that look like back in the day? Did you have like little goggles and computers and you just plug and play?
Well, we had some very expensive computers, silicon graphics machines, and the resolution of the output was pretty much what we would call VGA, or if you've seen the movie Tron, that level. And we had some very heavy and expensive head-mounted displays that we would wear, and sometimes we'd have to suspend them from the ceiling. They were so heavy, or at least counterbalance them with a rock or a brick. But we were able to do basic research to understand the power of the technology. And I was particularly interested in the way we controlled a virtual environment. At the time, we used a data glove, which I found had really interesting applications for stroke rehabilitation, traumatic brain injury rehabilitation, and also as an augmented communication device for people who were unable to speak. They could make a gesture using their hand and have the computer carry out an action for them.
Let's do some time travel. Let's go back these 30 plus years to the late 80s. And imagine you're the grad student, Walter Greenleaf, back in the day. What was your expectation back then? How many years did you give the technology to make big impact in everyday life?
Well, I have looked back recently, and I back to what I was saying in our publications and writings, and also what my colleagues are saying. And we all thought 5 years from now, somehow that's sort of the threshold where it's long enough away that you can have time to get things done, but seems near enough that you can still be very excited about it. And I think we consistently felt 5 years from now, it'll be taking off. And finally, it really is. So it's, I like the expression, I think it was by William Gibson, that the future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. And I think that's the case now, is that we really have some amazing things we can do with technology. Beam is one example. And we're in the process of translating it out and getting it out there into into use. And in my case, I focus on healthcare applications.
Now let's talk a little bit about Beam in a moment. First, what are interesting projects you're working on scientifically? What are you working on in VR, AR, and medicine?
Well, I work with a number of different academic groups and also early stage medical product companies. And the projects I'm most excited about are the ones where we're taking um, data we can collect about a person's cognitive function or emotional state, and make it objective. Often it's hard, in the past, it was hard to measure those things. We'd have to ask people to describe how they're feeling and try and measure with paper and pencil tests how they're thinking. Now we have virtual environments that we can use to evoke a emotional or a cognitive response. We can have an experience that you respond to. And I'm excited about how we're using that technology in particular to help with uh, anxiety, depression, addictions, many mental health and serious mental health issues, also with health and wellness issues and opportunities. I'm also excited about the way we're able to combine virtual environments with other forms of therapy, such as prescription medicine or medical device. So technology is rushing into digital health in a really amazing way, and I'm pretty excited about it right now. So we finally have some really powerful tools that can help us do so much more and reach some underserved populations that have we've not been able to help previously.
Can you give an example? What would be an environment that you can create through AR, VR for a patient? And then how does that contribute to therapy?
Well, I'll give one very tangible example. If you've had a stroke or if you've had a brain, like a traumatic brain injury or a physical injury, the process of recovering is very depressing. It's agonizing. Sometimes it can be painful and it takes a long time and people plateau. Now, by using a virtual environment, we can motivate people, we can guide them, we can adjust the protocols to their level because we can measure how they're moving very precisely. We can use the virtual environment to gamify the otherwise very boring rehab process. We can connect people to help each other and do things together. And we can measure progress and give feedback to someone how they're doing. It completely changes what otherwise can be and we can do it at home. We can support them as they're doing home therapy. So completely changes that aspect of clinical care.
So, in that case of maybe recovery from a stroke, currently you would see a therapist maybe once a week or once a day or twice a day, but those are minimal touch points and observations. With AR, VR, it'll be completely different.
Uh, and probably most importantly, I think we can measure how someone's doing and dynamically adjust the protocol to how what motivates them and how much progress they're making without the input of a clinician. We can have a system to do that, and we can make it interesting and engaging. And I think that's so important. Healthcare is not easy, and we finally have the ability to put a narrative story layer on top of some of the things that we're doing to address, rehabilitation is one example, but anxiety, depression, addictions, helping people with who are struggling with issues such as uh, cognitive decline, mild cognitive impairment, dealing with um, helping people who need to learn how to manage their emotional state in a better way. And it also translates over to things that are sort of outside of the clinical zone, but are more in the health and wellness zone too. So we're finally having some tools and to engage people and to leverage the learnings from our colleagues in the entertainment industry and the gaming industry to bring their ability to motivate us and engage us to healthcare.
It has a slightly subversive touch in the sense that healthcare is very good at defining whatever happens in the walls of a hospital as healthcare, while here suddenly we realize it goes outside to your home, it goes into prevention. How is the industry going to react to that?
Well, I think the industry knows that we have to move the locus of care from the clinic to the hospital in order to reach underserved populations and to reduce cost and to provide a dynamic feedback loop. And I think industry also realizes that we need to do a more precise approach. A one size fits all approach is just not going to be effective anymore. So I think some parts of industry are changing slowly and reluctantly. Other parts are saying, hey, we need to jump in board. And, you know, the introduction of the tech titans to this arena with their speed and their ability to bring things to the user at a low cost, I think is going to make a difference with Amazon, Apple, Google, Meta, all the Microsoft, all the tech players moving into the healthcare arena. It's just going to make things much more robust and much more interesting and hopefully move a lot faster. So the earthquake is happening, the continents are colliding, And I think those people within the healthcare industry are realizing that they need to adapt and hopefully not have it be a Kodak moment where they get eased out because they didn't adapt fast enough.
Right now, it's easy to fork out $1,500 for a VR device. You mentioned it's going to make access to healthcare more equitable, easier. What's the thinking there?
Well, right now it's hard to reach people that are in have an economic barrier to make it in, or a physical barrier. They live in a remote area, or perhaps maybe a culture barrier. Or we're building into our research biases into our data sets. But by being able to do more robust analytics, being able to push through telemedicine, by being able to reduce the cost by leveraging the power of digital technology, we'll be able to get beyond some of the challenges we've had with the existing clinic-based, where the gating step is the time of the expert to work with the patient. We can get beyond that now, leveraging AI technology, machine learning, and telemedicine technology.
Demographic change, more older people, fewer carers. Who can step in? Maybe the question is what, and it could be tech, it could be VR, AR applications.
Well, I think I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with what we term in the gaming industry non-player characters, being able to have virtual world environments where we can meet experts, clinicians, colleagues, where we can have a group meeting, where we can be present and have either anonymously if we're struggling with addiction, perhaps, or some other issue. And we can also have a clinician have a presence there, um, but maybe not always be there themselves, but have their avatar and some of the answers to routine questions they might be asked be pre designed. I think we need to do a better job of when someone is discharged from having a surgical procedure or having a stroke, for example, to give them the information they need and being able to have them follow up with questions, but not burden the clinician with always being on call to address this, and do something better than handing them a stack of Xerox sheets of paper. So I think technology is going to help leverage that challenge too, of informing people, giving them access to their clinicians, and reducing the time burden on the entire system.
For a lot of people, it's mainly VR that dominates their idea of the space, and it's people with goggles, but then that is still a little bit clunky. What about AR or immersive technologies, just like Beam, as you mentioned?
I think that's the way we have to go. There's a spectrum of immersion and what we do, what type of degree of blocking out the outside world or overlaying onto the outside world is really a function of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think if we're distracting someone from a painful or uncomfortable procedure, then we may want to block out the outside world. But at the other end of the spectrum, we may want to help someone who is struggling with a memory disorder or mild cognitive impairment. We may just want to have them wear a pair of glasses or contact lens that gives them extra information, helps them remember names, or helps them navigate to get to a spot they need to go, or to understand the emotional expressions of someone else and say this person, their body language, their facial expressions, their voice tone indicate this, and so that people may, I think we're on the cusp of that. I'm really looking forward to some of the next advances we'll have in the spectrum of immersive technologies. And as you pointed out, I think Beam is one key component for that.
What makes Beam interesting, special in the context of your work?
Well, I think one of the challenges we have right now with leveraging computer technology to reach a individual, a patient, or someone who's struggling with a challenge in health and wellness is that Zoom calls are limited in many ways. We don't get the full body. We also don't really get some of the dynamics that we need to have in order to effectively meet, and the context needs to be um, changeable. So I think technology like Beam is going to allow us to have a more robust way of providing a telemedicine experience and um, conveying the full emotional content that we need to convey when we're interacting with each other. And it's so much better than texting or email or even a Zoom call in many ways. So it's I think it's a nice evolutionary step that will fill an important gap that we have right now.
So I'm right now seeing a part of your upper body and your face. Well, there's a lot happening. I think a lot of our nonverbal communication is facial muscles, but what am I missing at the moment by not having you, for example, through Beam?
Well, if I was walking around and picking up a book from my library and talking to you about it, I would probably feel a lot more comfortable than just sitting in a chair. And I'd also would be interacting with you in a much more natural manner. And I could also show you something if I'm trying to help you with diabetic care or how to do wound management or how to do a particular type of stroke exercise. I can show you, which I really can't do sitting at a desk and talking to you like this.
So it's more than one thing. It's not just, oh, well, you see my full body. No, it's a lot more. Everybody can relax more by behaving more naturally, just the way they would if we were present in the same space.
And I can do more, and I can do more in a way that conveys more to you.
We've done time travel back 35 years. Now let's do more time travel. Let's go forward 5 years. From today's perspective, where are we going to be with these technologies?
Well, I've consistently been wrong with my 5 year projections, so I'll try and be a little bit more conservative. I'm really looking forward to the next evolution of digital health technologies, and what I think is on the cusp right now, and it may be 5 years and maybe 7 years, but it's on the way. Is the We're getting better at capturing our cognitive state, how both in the long term, we may have an age related or injury related impairment of cognitive function. Also, our emotional state, we may be in a bad mood or in a good mood, and interpreting that information and using it to dynamically change what we're interacting with. Our automobiles will be studying us to understand our goals, our intentions, and our alertness levels. Our refrigerators, our buildings will be sensing us and adapting to us, both our emotional state and our cognitive abilities. This will be great as a adaptive solution for people who do have an impairment, which with an aging population, we'll see more of. And I think we're going to find that that's going to make us a little bit better at connecting with each other. We lose so much right now. There's a lot of fatigue that happens with video conferencing for various reasons. I think technology will connect us better and help us understand each other better. And in the case of medicine, I think we'll be able to use that to come up with a more precision approach. So we can dynamically change the therapies, the prescription medicines, the devices, and the protocols based on how we are. Because heretofore, we haven't had a very good way of measuring, especially the subjective information. Now we'll have objective ways of measuring it and changing the protocol that we have for an individual.
Here's the irony. We will see more tech supporting healthcare, and you'd expect, oh, it will become depersonalized. You're saying the opposite. More tech means more personalized care.
Exactly. We have a term called precision medicine, and I think we're with machine learning and analytics, better evocative environments, ways of having a better presence, again, like Beam does and others. I think we're going to have exactly that. We're going to have a more robust way of technology helping us be better connected with each other.
I'm so relieved. I was fearing your prognosis would be, I think in 5 years' time, we'll go all the way back and have 10-kilo helmets again for VR and AR. No, it's not that. Walter, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the wonderful questions. I've enjoyed having a chance to talk with you and brainstorm. And let's check in 5 years and see where we are.
All right, we put it in the calendar. Have a brilliant afternoon. Thank you so much, Walter.